Program Director for Psychology Department. Before we begin, Drishti is a professional organization that has been serving mainstream schools as well as special education needs populations since 1994. We strongly believe in the policy philosophy of inclusive education. Our services address needs of not just an individual, but extend to those of the family and home and the school. We are a team of highly qualified and well-trained psychologists and special educator and other therapists. The core mission of Drishti is creating a significant social impact by enhancing well-being of children and their families and feeling great about it. The core values that we firmly believe is ethical by choice, genuine interest in all that we do to serve with integrity, learning and evolving constantly, unity and thoughts and action. Our director is Dr. Smita Desai, who is the founder and director of Drishti. She's an education psychologist. And Anand Desai, who is also the founding partner. He's a psychologist and the head business of development. We have a lot of core services. Drishti's main core services is on psychological and education assessment and diagnostics, therapies, counseling, and remedial education, school counseling, as well as training. We also have a lot of online courses which we have recently joined, which has a three variants each: Insight, Light, and Advanced version for education for all. The course one is on crisis intervention and trauma management, which aims to equip an individual with the required knowledge and skill to identify, assess, and provide intervention during crisis situation and traumatic event, like our recent situation of COVID-19. Course 2 is on teaching diverse and inclusive classrooms, which equips an individual with optimal knowledge and skill to use a framework of differentiated instruction in your classroom. Course 3, which is on inclusion and inclusive practices, which aims to equip an individual with knowledge and skill to make your classroom an inclusive community. And course 4, which is on counseling skill, which equips an individual with a brief understanding of counseling and the critical role it can play on. We have also provide with an introduction of some basic and integral counseling skills which are applicable under varied environments and that every must would know while working with children. We also have a course, a foundation course for beginners as well as practical application for advanced learner for on ABA, which is Applied Behavioral Analysis. And we also have the upcoming courses coming up on anti-bullying and training toolkit for parents and teachers. And we also have the last one is on social emotional learning for children, a toolkit for children, for teachers. So if anybody would be interested for more details, feel free to reach out to us at Drishti. We would be there to help you. So yes, to begin with, I would like to welcome Dr. Noellene. Dr. Noellene is a coordinator and a lecturer at Xavier's Institute of Counseling Psychology. She's a designer and instructor of the workshop of Our Lady of Rosary Parish, Mumbai, and as well as Villa Teresa High School. She's a doctorate in science with human development. She has done her MSc in human development. She's done her doctoral thesis in development of a proactive school counseling, initiating in the areas of bullying for pre-adolescent children and related adults. So here I go. Doctor, welcome for Drishti's masterclass, and I hand it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the introduction, and it's also nice to know what wonderful work Drishti is doing.
Thank you.
And I'm glad my student is now part of your organization as well. That's one of the reasons I did agree to come here for the webinar. Okay. Anyway, so let's begin. As you all are all aware, the topic I'm going to be presenting my screen. Okay. So can you all see the screen, Karishma?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the topic, of course, is positive psychology preparing today's youth. We'll first begin with a mindfulness check-in. So I'll walk you through the exercise, and I would like you to do it simultaneously in your homes or in whichever environment that you are. But of course, with the mics muted, otherwise there's just a lot of chaos and noise. So we will begin with five. That is, describe five things you can see. So, for example, what I see in my environment, I can see the clock, I can see the second hand ticking, I can see the beige curtain flying in the wind, I can see the black guitar resting against the wall. So, similarly, I would want you all to now describe five things in your own environment. You all can talk aloud to yourselves and do it, but just stay on mute. So, I'll give you a minute to do that before we go on to the next. Okay. We'll now move on to naming four things you can feel. Now, when I talk about things you can feel, I'm not talking about feelings and emotions. I'm talking about the actual things that you can physically feel. So, for example, I can feel the smooth steel of my laptop. I can feel the soft cushion that I am sitting on. I can feel the wooden support that is given to my back via the chair. Similarly, now name four things that you can feel in your environment. Okay, now we'll move on to the next. Name three things you can hear. So, for example, I can hear the faint voices of my children in the background. I can hear the fan. Similarly, name three things in your surrounding that you can hear. And name two things you can smell. So, for example, I can smell the tea that has been made. And finally, name one good thing about yourself. So, the last thing that is a good quality or good thing about yourself, I would like you all to put it in the chat box so I can see all the lovely strengths that you all have. So, for myself, I would say I have a good sense of humor. So, I'm waiting for your chat messages. Honesty, unity, calmness, pratibha, simplicity, sweetie. Okay. Are the others? Okay. Swati is vibrant. Okay, that's great. Lovely qualities we have. And this is a mindfulness check in. Especially now that we have online classes, I do this with my students and they fall into this youth, the youth group as such. And it's a wonderful way to begin because it helps you to focus, it grounds you. And I also encourage them because they are going to be counselors. So I encourage them to sometimes start a session with it, end a session with this. And there are various activities of mindfulness that are freely available and which you can use. And it's an excellent way to get um, them to focus and for yourself to calm down as well. It's excellent for you to move away from your worrying thoughts and ground into the present moment. And it's also definitely one of the strategies in positive psychology. So, the outline of today's talk, I will begin a bit with positive psychology. I'll move into understanding today's youth. And then we'll blend both and see practical ways in which positive psychology can benefit today's youth and help us to prepare them. So we'll first start off with the definition. And of course, one of the founders is Martin Seligman. We do have a lot of psychologists in the audience. Where did we first hear Seligman's name? Associated to which concept? Does anybody remember? You can put it in the chat box. Yes, somebody raised their hand. Would you like to answer?
Yeah, I may I?
Yes, sure. Answer. Yes.
Yes, I have heard him when I learned about learned helplessness also. So he coined this term
Yes.
learned helplessness as
Yes, exactly. So he, even I heard about him at that time, and when we studied about learned helplessness. But he is considered as one of the founders of positive psychology because in 1998, when he became the president of the American Psychological Association, he decided to have this focus on the positive aspects of human beings and of psychology in general. He found that traditional psychology had gotten a bit skewed, you know, and so he wanted to realign our focus and so, focused more on concepts in positive psychology. So the first paper that was published on positive psychology was in 2000. So quite a few of us who have graduated and done our post graduation before that have not really studied positive psychology in our curriculum. But that being said, it's not that we bring in positive psychology and throw out traditional psychology. It is brought in to complement traditional psychology. So if we look at the definition, and I've highlighted a few words, we see that it focuses on flourishing, which is well-being. So we are not obsessed with a person's disease. We are also looking at how we can help a person who may not have any disease in the psychological sense, so to say. How can we still help them self actualize? How can we still help them become the best versions of themselves? It also focuses on optimal functioning. And I like this term, optimal functioning, because just 1 minute, I think my daughter has started her dance practice. I'll just tell her to lower the volume. Okay. So sorry about that. That's what happens when we are working from home. Okay. Anyway, I'll get back to the presentation. Can you all see it?
No,
Okay.
you
Okay.
have to
Okay. Don't
reshare
worry.
it.
I have to reshare it. Yes. Okay. I like this term optimal functioning because it doesn't talk about burning the candle at both ends and pushing yourself to the extremes till you crack. It talks about functioning at that sweet spot where you are challenged enough, where you don't break down at the same time. It's not too easy for you. So it focuses on that. It focuses on strengths and virtues, and it talks about enabling individuals, communities, organizations, the world at large. So there are many definitions, and this is the one that I particularly like. And of course, it's given to us by the founder, Seligman. But we have to remember that Seligman stood on the shoulders of giants. So, Abraham Maslow had the same ideas. He spoke about self-actualization. Carl Rogers spoke about, the humanist and how individuals essentially want to be on the right path of development, but sometimes the environment can take you off. And everybody is essentially doing the best they can. Okay, so that's about the definition of positive psychology. Now, the model in positive psychology is the PERMA model, and I will go through each of these constructs or concepts. So P stands for positive emotions, E engagement, then relationships, meaning, accomplishment, and in addition, which Seligman uses a plus sign, but Dr. Michel uses health, H. So I've chosen to go with that because I think that's more clear. We know exactly what it means. So I'll go through each. So first is positive emotion. So positive emotion is not just happiness. We're also talking about inspiration. We're also talking about love, the ability to be present in the moment. That's positive emotion. And how do we enhance it? Definitely spending time doing things you love, whether it is a hobby and it could be cooking or gardening, whatever it is, spending time with people you care about. Another option could be inspirational, uplifting music, or even practicing gratitude. Now, in positive psychology, they very clearly outlined how you should engage in gratitude. It's just not repeating the same three things that you're grateful for every day. You have to intentionally choose three different things every day, and it can be done through various methods. A journal or an app. Currently, my sister and I engage, we exchange messages every morning of what things we are grateful for. So there are different ways of doing it. And it's essential that we experience this positive emotion and we make time for it. I find a lot of times that women particularly struggle, because when you're sitting and you're doing something you like or you're enjoying yourself, at the back of your mind, you're thinking, am I wasting my time? Shouldn't I be checking on the kids? Shouldn't I be cooking something? Shouldn't I be planning something? But no, we too need to experience positive emotions because we are also role models for our daughters and sons. So when I take time off for myself, I'm teaching my daughter that as a woman, you are important and you need to do that. And I'm also teaching my son that, listen, tomorrow when you're married, you need to also give your wife this space, and encourage her to experience positive emotion. So that's about positive emotion. Then engagement, that is, being immersed completely in the moment. So immersed in what you are doing. So for example, when I'm teaching a class, sometimes I'll forget the break, and then my students will remind me, ma'am, it's time for the break. Of course they are not as immersed as me, but whatever, at least I'm immersed. Then spending time in nature is one way to get lost into the moment, using your talents to benefit society. So for example, my daughter loves to dance, and when she's dancing, like what she's currently doing, she forgets about time and everything. So she's totally engaged. And of course, mindfulness. So that activity which we did is an idea of how through your various senses, you can experience mindfulness and, ground into the moment and be fully engaged in the present moment. Okay. Then relationships. So we all know, and especially the pandemic, I think, has reinforced this, how much we need each other. We essentially are social beings, and we need to have, family, or, even family, familial figures. If you don't have a family, people who are like family to you, friends, colleagues, mentors, we need to have meaningful connections because we are interdependent. We cannot survive alone. We need, and we've always seen in psychology through research that human beings and your support system of human beings acts as a buffer to stress. So depending on and I'm talking about actual connections. I'm not talking about the number of friends you have on Instagram and Facebook. We're talking about real connections over here, and relationships makes a big difference to, how you will view a situation in life, whether you will succumb to mental disorders and the like. And of course, responding to others. It's just not what you are getting from the relationship, but also what you are giving in a relationship. Then meaning. It's so important to have a purpose in life. And the Japanese have beautifully coined the term ikigai, the reason for living. And meaning is an essential part. So it means being involved in a cause that matters, in being involved in a cause that is bigger than you. So I always feel blessed that I totally love the job I'm doing, because I believe that, through my students, when they join organizations or schools or whatever, they are helping so many people and helping humanity at large and making this world a better place. So that is something so much larger than what I am doing in that classroom. And it has so much of meaning. And of course, spending time on your talents and using your talents for society. And all this will help you to experience meaning in your life. accomplishment, the ability to believe that I am capable of completing a task, and also celebrating once it's done. And it could be small wins. So it's not some big thing that you have to achieve to celebrate it. It could be small. Like every Friday, when my children finish online school, they'll put down their earphones and we all go, yes, thank God it's Friday, and we all do a jig. So it's a small win. We've got through the week, we've done our stuff, let's celebrate. Of course, also smart goals. So smart goals, I'm sure you all know what it is. Could anybody raise their hand and just let me know what is the full form of smart goal? Okay. Yes. Tell me. Somebody raise their hand.
It's specific, achievable,
Specific. Yes.
realistic, and time bound, I guess.
Yes, and measurable. Great. So your goals have to be specific. If it's vague, it's like you're shooting in the dark and then you don't know whether you've got your target or not. So, setting smart goals helps you to even realize when you've achieved it and then celebrate it. And of course, reflecting on past successes. Because of evolution, we tend to be quite negative in our thinking. But now, given our current situation in life, too much of negative thinking is not going to help us. So we have to learn to unlearn that and focus a bit on the positive. So reflecting on past successes helps us to do it. And then finally, health, which is extremely important, having physical activity, nutrition, sleep. And actually, as part of our Indian culture, we've always known this. Yoga has taught us about the mind-body connection and all of that. Only recently, when the Western world started realizing this connection through dance therapy and all of that, we have embraced the concept, but we've always had it as part of our culture. And specifically when it comes to the youth, sleep is so crucial. When they don't engage in the required number of hours of sleep, there are studies to say that they experiment more with risky behavior, like drugs, unprotected sex, and all of those things. So sleep is really essential. Of course, we know nutrition. If we are lacking particular vitamins, or for example, if you're lacking iron, you will show symptoms which are very similar to depression. So nutrition also is vital. And of course, physical activity. We need the sun, we need some kind of activity. And for the youth, they don't really need to join a gym or do some hardcore exercise. Going for a trek, walking around, just doing things, dancing, whatever they love, that's enough for them for physical activity. And that's very important. We've seen how your mood can be affected when you don't have enough of physical activity. So that's for the model. Now we'll go on to understanding today's youth. I've chosen to look at the age group of 15 years to 24 years. That's what the UN gives us. That is the age group. Otherwise, youth can be a little bit vague. And what I'd like to say is that when you want to prepare the youth, or when you want to connect with the youth, the connection should start much before they become youths, or teenagers. And that is specifically, of course, for parents, because you cannot suddenly realize that, oh, they're growing up, and before they start doing, drugs or hanging around with company that I'm not very happy with, I will, start connecting to them. No, the connection starts way, way, way before. It starts from the time they're babies, it goes on to toddlerhood, and so on. You can't expect to suddenly get have this relationship when they hit the youth or the teen years. Of course, for teachers and counselors, we're lucky because we just come into their lives maybe at that age. So they're open to us. And if we connect with them, then they are more open to us and listening to us and all of that. So let's look at where they are developmentally. And so physical development, puberty is almost complete. In fact, in today's generation, they're reaching puberty much faster. Body image. So there's less concern about physical changes, but increased interest in personal attractiveness. Now, body image is something that the youth really, really struggle with, they care about. And whenever I have a lot of workshops with the youth, I love working with the youth. I feel that's what, keeps me young at heart, mind, soul, everything. So whenever I start, the first workshop I have is on body image because I know they care so much about it. And then, of course, we talk about, where they rate themselves when it comes to being beautiful or handsome. From where did they get these ideas of beauty and handsome? And who is, coining these ideas for them? And then we debate those ideas and we redefine what beauty is. But I like to start over here because it really concerns them, and in today's world, it's even more tough because of the various filters and photoshops. It's unrealistic, the standards that are set for, your body image. It's unrealistic. And we need to fight that. And they have to also learn to fight it. So this is a beautiful starting point with the youth. And then you can go on to things like self-esteem and all of that. They also have excessive physical activity alternating with lethargy. So they have this beautiful capacity to, sometimes sleep for 12, 13, 14 hours, as well as, stay up and do a lot of work. And that's normal. It's part of their development. Then we'll move on to cognitive development. Now, over here, the brain, and this is a very important thing, that their brain is not fully formed. Can anybody tell me when is the brain fully formed? By which year? You can put it in the chat, or you can say it.
Yeah,
Anybody?
so the brain not fully formed, which means that the prefrontal cortex is not well developed. So they are not able to rationalize.
Yes, exactly. And by which year is the prefrontal cortex and the full brain formed? By which year? Approximately 25 years. Okay.
Usually
So
the
you can
25 years.
understand that. Yes, by 25 years. So the last part to develop, like I cannot see your name because my screen is covering it. So you're right. The last part to develop is the prefrontal cortex, which is in charge of executive functions. And that is long-term planning, impulse control, goal setting. That is why we find the youth and the teen, they can be impulsive. They can take those risks because they don't see what is the long-term effect of me doing that. So this is important to keep in mind when dealing with the youth. That being said, they have a continued capacity for abstract thought. They can now understand, manipulate ideas in their head. So you can have a lot of discussions, and you should have a lot of discussions, debates about what's happening in society and how things can get better, all of that. They have a greater capacity for setting goals, and you can teach them how to make smart goals and how they can apply it in their lives. They have an interest in moral reasoning, and they will come to you and they will say things to you, and don't shut them up. I would say listen to them, have a discussion, look at both sides, and be open, because they should know that they can come to you, because more often than not, you are giving them the correct advice and leading them on the right path. Otherwise, if they know that they can't come to you, they'll go to sources which might lead them on the wrong path, like the internet and all of that. And of course, they're thinking about the meaning of life, thinking of the meaning of their own lives as well. Then social emotional development, there is intense self involvement. It doesn't mean that they are selfish. It is just part of their development. Then they oscillate between, saying, oh, I'm the best, to, oh, I'm just horrible. I can't get out of my room and from under my bed sheet. So those mood swings and all are there. They have a tendency to distance themselves from parents. That's why I said the need to make the connection before they reach this age, because it's all a battle of autonomy and being independent. So I do see that sometimes they're given all the responsibility because they look like an adult, but they're not given the freedom. Sometimes we mollycoddle them and we don't give them both responsibility and freedom, and that can be really annoying. So it's difficult being a teenager, being a youth. And of course, the peer group matters a lot to them. So they have strong peer allegiances, fad behaviors. You'll find them all dressing up the same way, all dyeing their hair, the tips of their hair red, because it's part of their growing up. They have sexual drive, they explore their ability to date, attract a partner, and it's good to have conversations with them about all of these aspects. And then and I think there are a lot of psychologists here, Erickson says that they are dealing with identity development. And as part of the identity development, they do experiment with sex, drugs, friends, jobs, risk-taking behavior. So this is the youth and understanding the youth. And I'd like to say it's tough being a teen. Sometimes we are hard, and I have a tween and a teen, both in my home. My children, one is a tween and one is a teen. Tween is just a preteen, and we are all stuck together 24 hours because of the pandemic. It is difficult. It is tough being a teen. And now I think with the internet, with social media, it's even more difficult because it's all pervasive. It's everywhere. At least when we were teens, when we were youth, when we came home, we could switch off from the comments. We could switch off from what other people said. But here, they don't get a chance. It's on their phones. They're constantly updating, their feeds and all of that. So it's difficult. It's difficult being a youth today. And so what can we do? But at the same time, I'd like to say that youth is our superpower. Before I took up psychology and majored in psychology, I was debating between economics and psychology. And I attended a conference in economics, and I still remember the speaker. I don't remember who he was, but I remember what he said. And he said, our nation has the power to be a superpower. And the reason is because we've got a huge population of youth, and they are our power. And I really believe that is true. Our youth is our superpower. So how do we enhance the superpower in them? So I'm going to be using an acronym, super and power, where each word will stand for something, which is a practical way of applying positive psychology to prepare the youth. So S, self-awareness, U, uniqueness, P, parental figures, E, education, R, routine, P, prayer, O, others, W, warmth, E, excellence, and R, resilience. So we'll begin with self-awareness. So simple things of allowing them to explore who they are. These are some questions which I actually use with the youth. Who are the people who love and accept me for who I am? Who are the people I look up to, or who are my role models? So I have them reflect on it because they're so, entwined with their friends, because at this age it's normal, that they forget who they are. So when we have a workshop, I will individually send them off with a sheet of paper, maybe in a garden, take a spot where you're alone and reflect on all of this and answer these questions. So self-awareness, definitely very important, knowing the person you are. And how do we encourage it? Like I said, through alone time, journaling. Some of them like to write in a diary, some like to write poems. You can give them essay topics to write about. And of course, trying different activities to see what they like doing. And I'd like to mention over here that social work is an excellent way for them to, find their talents in a very safe setting. Because if you go and you volunteer, people are not going to be so hard on you. When you're working and they're giving you a salary, they're going to be really tough on you. But when it comes to social work and when you volunteer, people give you a chance. And then you learn to bloom. And there's a lot you can learn. And I always tell parents that instead of spending so much of money on these public speaking and that class and this class, let them do some social work. You'll see how they bloom. And I have seen it personally in the youth who have been involved in social work. Now they're young adults, some are married, some have children. I've seen it in my own life. We didn't have all the money to go for all the classes, but we were always encouraged to do social work. And I see it in the lives of my children, how social work has helped them bloom and realize their talents. So that's one thing. Then, of course, being unique. It's very difficult for a youth or teenager to, be proud of their uniqueness. And of course, because of FOMO, fear of missing out, peer pressure, they want to fit in, they don't want to stand out. So how do we enhance this uniqueness? So first of all, recognize it and say it aloud as a teacher, as a counselor, as a parent. Tell them, because they don't see it. Like I said, we ourselves also, we also are very negative with ourselves. So we need to be very careful with them and recognize, oh, you're great at putting colors together. I love the way you blended the flavors in this dish. Oh, you dance so well. Oh, you wrote the essay so well. Oh, you have a wonderful smile. I like the way you reached out to your partner. So this is how we identify and recognize their uniqueness and strengths and celebrate it. So, through affirmations, one little activity I do with the youth is I have them look into a mirror, and especially when we've done body image. So we look into the mirror, and I tell them you have to look at something and you have to say it. So I would say, hi, Noellene, I love your smile. So each person has to do this. I also teach them to accept others and their talents and their uniqueness. And so there are so many games where they're supposed to complement each other and all of those things. And that's a way in which we can teach them how to accept another person. And I like that Drishti spoke about inclusive education, because I don't feel that only the differently able child is benefiting. I also believe that the so-called normal child is benefiting from this interaction. Both benefit. They learn to empathize, they look at the world from different angles, they learn to help, they learn to anticipate how to help somebody. So it's a wonderful thing, inclusive education. Also remind them that people who love them accept their unique and special qualities. And very often your unique quality is what is going to make you successful in life. And we all know that. Then parental figures or role models. So I've used the word parental figures and not saying only parents, because sometimes parents might not be the ideal role models. And I don't want to say this to judge parents, because we don't know what kind of an upbringing that parent went through. And in that parent's mind, they might be doing the best for their child. So we are in no place to judge. But there can be a lot of role models and parental figures, for the youth. It could be a teacher, it could be an aunt, it could be somebody in the community, it could be somebody from a book, an autobiography. It could be Oprah Winfrey. There were many people who said, when we came home to an empty house, but we came home to the Oprah serial. So I always felt that I was mothered by Oprah. Not me, I mean, some other viewers used to tell her. So you can find role models everywhere. And it's so crucial, because a relationship is what can stabilize a human being. And we've seen that in research. We've seen how toxic stress can harm a human being. Adverse childhood experiences can harm a human being. But what will help them be resilient and get over it is through at least one relationship. One relationship is enough. So, of course, as role models, you've got to practice what you preach. And I know it's tough. Like I said, I also have two, a tween and a teen, and I know it's very tough being a parent and being that role model. But we need to do it. And of course, we need to remember the PERMA model. If we want them to use it in their lives, we have to do it. So are you taking time to experience positive emotion? Are you engaged? Are you engaged sometimes when you're having a conversation with them? Are you truly present in that moment? Are you truly immersed in what they are saying? Are you making that eye contact? Because they can tell. Do you have meaningful relationships? Like, do you share a meaningful relationship with them as well as others? And a fantastic way to enhance your relationship is to have meals with your children. Or sit down, or even in school, if that's possible. I was a school counselor before I shifted into lecturing and other things, and I used to always have my break and sit in my office, because I knew that was the time the children would come to me. Otherwise they are always referred, but that was the time they had the freedom to come to me, and tell me about what they're going through. So having meaningful relationships with them. Also, do you celebrate your accomplishments? And they need to see that. And of course, do you take care of your health? Nowadays, I'm finding more people are taking care of their health. But initially, it's like you saw how harassed a mother looked. And, when the child is small, it's like, even I used to always feel I look like a kitchen rag. But as I grew up a bit, I started taking care of my health, and that's really important because they do a lot of what you are doing. So, I exercise, so they also exercise. So I doubt very much if I didn't exercise, whether they would find the importance in that. Of course, in education, and specifically positive education, since we're talking about positive psychology. So, of course, not just academic, but life skills, awareness of emotions. So, over here, I'd like to say not only being aware of positive emotions, but being aware of the whole gamut of emotions, the so-called negative emotions as well. And it's very important that you recognize emotions even if they may be unpleasant, because through brain scans they have found that if you don't recognize the unpleasant emotion that you're experiencing, whether it's anger, whether it's fear, your amygdala, that is the primitive part of your brain, doesn't stop working. It continues to work. But the beauty is, when you recognize, yes, I am angry, what takes over is your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain. So it's important to teach them about various emotions, help them to build their emotional vocabulary, recognize what emotions they're going through, and of course how to regulate it. Just because I'm angry doesn't mean I go and slap you. I make a conscious decision of what I'm going to do. Maybe I might choose to avoid you, so that will give us some space so that I don't slap you. So emotional regulation. How do I now, the emotions that I recognize, how do I now regulate my behavior? And of course, gratitude, like I said, it should be three different things. You could even have them write a gratitude letter and go and deliver it, give it to the person who has, helped them with something. And this is actually a strategy suggested in positive psychology itself. And it is found to have significant results on people who actually engage in it. Forgiveness, that is also part of positive psychology. There are various exercises, how you write down the name of the person you're having some kind of issue with, write down what is hurting you, then throw it out and let it go. And of course, when you forgive someone, you're actually doing a favor to yourself, because you're no longer carrying that burden, and that is very calming mentally. And mindfulness, being in the present moment, teaching them that through activities like what I just did earlier. Identifying strengths, and of course there are various websites that help you. You can take an online quiz and find out which are the strengths which you have. So over here, instead of only focusing on their weaknesses and giving remedial help for that, which is also important, you also identify what their strengths are and hone in on them. So uh, before I became a school counselor, for a bit I was in a school which had children who had learning disability. And I remember some of them struggling with math, some of them struggling with English. And today, of course, they're grown, and some of them are so, successful. One is a chef, and he comes in the papers, and he's working in some top place. I don't remember where. One is, an RJ, and excellent with mixing music and all of that. So we identified their strengths. Of course, we did try to remedy their weaknesses, but we identified their strengths and encouraged them and their parents to hone in those strengths, because today that becomes their career. So identifying strengths, and of course building on strengths. Then routine. So the secret of your success is found in your daily routine. I just read that, I think Mr. Maxwell gave this quote, and it is so true. It's not that one day where you go and achieve something great. It's something that you do every day that makes you a success finally. So routines help to give some control and feel powerful. So in a crisis, the first thing that psychologists do, we're trained to do, is to help the person who's gone through that trauma come up with a routine, because that gives them some stability. Even during the pandemic, if you've noticed, Eastern, Western, everywhere, people were saying, have a routine. Because when everything else is falling apart, when everything else is uncertain, this routine brings about that kind of stability. So you encourage them to set routines, because of course that keeps them healthy and happy. It helps to build their self-esteem. So this is a question I normally ask them: what would you include in a good routine? And if we had time, we could do it, but now we are running out of time, so I want to go a little fast. So what would you include in a good routine? Then we brainstorm, then they come up with their routines. And of course, we see that it's not overcrowded when they come up, and certain things have to be added in the routine to make it a success. And so quickly, what does SUPER stand for? Self-awareness, unique parental figures, education, and routine. We still have to get through PAR, so I'll do it quickly. I'll PAR through it. So the next P stands for prayer. And uh, today, psychology has evolved to the spiritual dimension. So we're no longer stuck only with EQ and emotional quotient. We're actually studying spiritual quotient as well, SQ. And it is found that prayer has a lot of protective effects. Those youth that indulge or involved in praying, they have better emotional processing, they have higher levels of forgiveness, higher self-esteem, and they're 33% less likely to engage in drugs. And it's from this study, but there are various other studies also that have proved time and time again of the power of prayer. I'm also attending an international conference on suicide, where they say for teens, a prayer and belonging to a community can make such a difference in as to whether they die by suicide or not. Then of course, others, caring for others, very important to teach them to ask others for help, because you're not expected to do everything on your own. So ask others and keep asking till somebody finally helps you. Help others too. I spoke about social work, how it enhances your talents. And of course, it releases happy hormones. It's a natural painkiller. It builds your immunity and it helps you glow. And of course, the youth and the teenagers love the glow bit, because it's actually found that if you do engage in social work, you do look younger. And W for warmth, that is making meaningful connections, of course, enhancing their communication skills, teaching them about active listening. The Solaire, there are many counselors, so you all know what is Solaire, sit squarely, eye contact, open, all of those things. Empathizing, so that they can make meaningful connections. And as I already spoke, these connections, which will be the buffer to stress. And of course, excellence. Now, excellence is being the best version of yourself joyfully. Now, the difference between excellence and perfection, can anybody tell me what's the difference between excellence and perfection? I
May I?
hope you all are still there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure.
Okay.
Yes,
So excellence for me means like taking each step every day and being better from yourself. And
exactly. Yes.
perfection is something which I'm not good at, like being very picture perfect on everything. And like it depends on the opinion of others basically. And excellence is, I guess, self work and things like that.
Yes. So excellence is not being the best. That's perfection. I want to be the best at what we are doing, but doing your best. Hmm? So putting in that amount of energy which is required to do your best. Excellence is not perfection, as beautifully explained just now. And it's important that you make excellence a habit. So whatever you're doing, give it your best and do your best, but don't be worried about the results. When you get when you're thinking about the results, then you're becoming a bit of a perfectionist. But you do your best and then let it go. Okay, so let excellence be your brand. And finally, resilience. So reminding them that mistakes and failures are not them, and it can be done through essay writing, sharing stories, that the failure is a failure. It doesn't make you a failure. You are beyond, you are far more than that. Success is, if not having so much of money and not having this big huge house, success is if you were better than what you were yesterday, you are successful. Success is in the journey. And of course, you have the strength to overcome anything. And I often tell them, when you are in a crisis, when you're overwhelmed and you don't know what to do, begin by taking the first step, the first baby step. What's the first thing? Maybe it means getting out of bed and putting my feet on the floor. That could be the first step. The second step may be going to the washroom and washing my face and brushing my teeth. Just take the next step and keep taking the next step, the next right step, and you will get out of it. And of course, teach them to identify their strengths at different levels, not only individual strengths, but who are their supports in their family. Maybe it may not be their mother or father, it could be an elder sister, it could be an elder brother, it could be an aunt, it could be a grandparent. In school, who can they reach out to? Maybe they belong to a club, maybe they belong, or maybe there's a certain teacher, maybe it's the principal. Who is their strength, who is for them. All of us need cheerleaders for us. And in their community, maybe there are, like, we have a youth group, so that is a huge strength to the youth. So there are various things. Maybe they're part of a dance group, music group, whatever. That all becomes your strength, and you have to identify. And that's what resilience is: identifying the strengths in your life at various levels, which give you the ability to bounce out of a situation that is a crisis or is trauma. And I often tell them the story of this little girl, not very little, but she was a university student. She had no network in Malaysia. So she built a tree house and gave her exams because that was the only place that had a network. And because of her story went viral, and because of that, now the telecom in Malaysia brought 4G to her entire village. A story of resilience. Okay, so with that, I will end today. We'll go through it very quickly. Can anybody unmute and tell me what super and pa stand for? If you all remember. Okay, so I shall just see it. Okay, so S stands for self-awareness. Are you all there? Is the network fine?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely
Okay,
clear.
cool. Because there's pin drop silence, so I'm a little worried. So I'll just tell you then what it means in case you all forgot. So S, self-awareness. U, unique. P, parental figures. E, education. R, routine. I also forgot. Okay, then P, prayer. O, others. W, warmth. E, excellence, and R, resilience. So if you are a youth, please believe that you're a superpower. If you deal with youth, please believe that they are superpowers. And I would like you all to finally write in the chat box any one name of a youth that you know, and write dash has superpower. So I will also write. Okay. So Gianna is a youth, and I believe that Gianna has superpower. Okay. So nobody else is writing. Okay, that's fine. So we'll end today. The next slide was thank you, which I didn't show you all, but I'm open to questions. We have 9 minutes for questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for
Yeah.
the wonderful. I think a lot of questions that I have to ask, but yes, we are open for questions. Please feel free to unmute your device. You want to put it in the chat box. Please do the needful. I think we've got a wonderful opportunity because we always thought about positive psychology, that it's a very broad term, but I think the way the superpower has been brought down to, it's now simpler for me to even understand it. So
Thank you.
before we begin with the question answer, I'm posting a small feedback link in the chat box. I would request you simultaneously if you would also give us a feedback. That would be very helpful. So Dr. Nisha has raised her hand. So
Yes.
Nisha,
Yes,
would you like
Nisha.
to ask a question?
Yeah. So before my question, thank you for the great session. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you.
And secondly, like I have been working a lot on these constructs per se since last year or so. And my question was like, how do we really inculcate this along with social emotional learning and, these concepts in teaching, which are bucking up now across the globe? So anyway, we can buck up, like though positive psych is definitely leading to that, but how do we practically put it together?
Okay, so I'd say that actually social emotional learning does already include a lot of positive psychology. So it's just a matter of, taking those terms and seeing how to use it. But like I did it in today's class, that's how you take those terms and make it practical and doable with the youth. So that would be my suggestion. It's understanding at positive emotion. How can I evoke positive emotion? What are the strategies that I can use, and how can we now put this into worksheets, into discussions, into activities for the youth, so that they experience it? Because if you can't convert that construct into actual activities and practical ways of doing it, then it just becomes a construct. But we need to use it, like you said, and already social emotional learning involves a lot of that. So it's just realizing that it's important and that we're not wasting our time when we're doing it. That's it. Okay. I hope I've answered your question, Nisha.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Welcome.
Dr. Noellene, we also have one more question in the chat box. Vaishali has asked how to motivate teenage children for achieving their goals. That's the first question. And she's also requested if there are any social emotional learning website.
Okay, there are quite a few, and I'm sure even Karishma must be aware of them. And I could share over email. But first of all, you have to realize, are those goals your goals or their goals? Okay, so make sure that they are their goals. And one way I do it is through having a vision board. So I talk to them and we look at different aspects in our life. It could be health, it could be academic, it could be relationships. And now we'll set a goal in each of these and we'll find pictures and we'll put it down, and this is our vision for 2021 or whatever, now 2022. So this is one way of motivating them. And when you see it, obviously you're reminded that that's your goal and that's what you want to do. So, if somebody gossips, I'll tell that teenager, look at your vision board. So, my thing is to focus on whatever, maybe public speaking. So I'm going to forget about this gossip and let it fall by the wayside. So that's one way, vision board. But there are a lot of worksheets and all that will help in, goal setting and motivating them. And of course, checking and reviewing your goals also become important from time to time. Yes, I hope I answered that, Vaishali.
Yeah, she did reply, I guess.
Yes.
So I have a question to ask, and I will not leave before I ask a question.
Sure.
So, Dr. Rajan said, celebrating small win. Okay, and I think a lot of time it's not just the youth, but a lot of time as adults we also fail to do that, like appreciating ourselves. So, what is something like if you could share any strategy or some of the techniques that how we could inculcate this concept of how they can celebrate such small win in youth at this point of time, knowing that it's COVID, we all are at home, it's school from home or work from home. So if you could help us with, if you could share any of the strategies that has worked with youth.
So I think one is realizing their strengths. I'm so grateful that I actually have a teen and a tween in my house, because if today I was confident and of going online, or last year I was confident, to teach online, it was because I had their backing. They taught me what to do. Even this Google Meet thing, I actually tried out with them first. Yesterday we had a trial run, and then so one thing is realizing their strengths and appreciating and showing that you're not perfect. I always say, show them that you're a struggling model. Don't show them that you're perfect, because it's not easy to relate to somebody who's perfect, but you show them your struggle. So that's one way that they connect with you. And then you show them how you got through it, what helped you, and then they have they also use those means. Something as simple as a checklist ticking off, deciding there are 3 tasks to be done today and then ticking them off can be very gratifying. You don't have to buy big gifts to celebrate your wins. It can be just that. It can be doing a jig, like I said, every Friday we do it, 3 of us. My husband sits in a separate room because we make too much noise, but 3 of us will sit, and soon as Friday we are done with the school and I am done with some work, we'll remove it and we'll all dance. It's a simple way of celebrating wins, and getting them involved in community. The youth have done a lot in our community. They've reached out to the elderly, they've reached out to parents, they've reached out to children, and we have all applauded them for that. We have celebrated that achievement. So it becomes easier for them to celebrate themselves then. Okay.
Right. Thank you so much for answering. I think Ms. Sandhya wanted to ask
Yes.
something. Ms.
Sandhya?
Sandhya?
Yeah. Good evening, ma'am. It's a wonderful session. And
Thank
I'm so
you.
happy that Drishti always brings out these wonderful sessions. I think I'm a regular over here.
Okay.
So the question I wanted to ask you is that, like, I have a twin right now. So what happens is, it's like sometimes a conflict. So like, I keep telling, I'm a parental coach. So I keep giving preach to people that, it's easy. This is how you should do. But when it comes to me, and when I'm supposed to do it myself, it becomes way more difficult to like control my anger. As parents, we tend to lose our cool. We tend to scream at them. It happens. And then she says, Mama, but you're preaching and you're telling people and you're not doing the same thing, because she's hearing me doing this thing. So
Yes, yes.
how does one handle this? How does one handle a child? Because I know that they are going through the psychological changes, this, all the brains and the neurological changes. But how does one handle that?
Yeah. I get what you go through, because even my children will use the psychological terms on me,
Yeah,
back.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
yeah, you said this and now look at you. But if you look at the best parent is the good enough parent. You must be knowing that. The parent
Yeah,
who tries,
yeah,
the parent who is spot on 80% of the time, and that's fine. So make peace with the fact that though you may be a parental coach, you know it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect as a parent all the time. And I tell them, yes, I make mistakes. I might talk about anxiety, but I get overwhelmed with anxiety at times, and I show them, and it's okay. And I think just when you make a mistake, say I'm sorry.
no, in fact, I do that. There are days I've yelled
Yeah.
and I go back and I say that I'm really sorry for misbehave, for being this way. But I got ticked off because, and we sit and have conversations. So we have a lot of
Yes.
conversations, and I sit and talk. So I have a conversation when I'm not in that angry state of mind. So I said, let's
Yes.
sit, and then in a calmer state of mind, I will sit and explain to her what I'm thinking about, why I said that, and I tell her exactly why like what I have gone through and what I'm going through and what's running in my mind. So then she's okay, Mom, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And it's okay, to have a bit of conflicts, because the world is not going to be all rosy for them, right? So they have to
Very
be
true.
prepared for the world
Very true. So
and conflicts.
I keep telling them that, you're not going to get into a world where everyone's going to love you and be showering you with love and talking nicely too. So I said, today, if I'm harsh with you, tomorrow, if your boss is harsher, it will be a piece of cake because you say, Mama shouted more.
But at the end of the day, you have to also reassure them that you love them more.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do
that's
that. I
also
do
important.
that. That
Yeah,
is a
I'm
hug and
sure
a
you do
kiss.
that.
At the end of the day,
Yes.
every day it's a hug and a kiss,
Yeah.
whatever it is. I have a
Whatever
tween
they've been
and
through.
a
Yes.
9-year-old. So I said that whatever happens in life, you can come and tell me.
Yeah.
You don't have to go
Yes.
running to anyone. So they keep coming and
Yeah.
tell me their problems or what's happening with their friends and all of that. So I
That's
listen
good. So
and get
you're the
back.
best parent, because you're a good enough parent. You're the best parent.
Thank you
Yes.
so much, ma'am. I feel good. I'm feeling better now. Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank you
Yes.
Thank you
so
so
much,
much.
Miss Sandhya. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Noellene, for joining us. I'm
You're
very
most
grateful.
welcome.
In fact, I would like to thank all the participants for being there. Um, we are there. Drishti, as an organization, we do conduct a lot of webinars. It's a free webinar. We do also have an upcoming workshop, which is on Friday. So at any point of time, if you need any details, we are there on Facebook, Insta, Twitter, LinkedIn. So you can reach out to us. Thank you so much, Doctor, for this wonderful master class for today. Thank you so much. Thank you
You're
so much,
most welcome.
participants.
Wish you all the very best,
Thank
all
you
of
so
you.
much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye bye.